Hey guys, and welcome to Otter Creek Aquatics. My name's Blake. I run a channel called Blake's Aquatics, and Kendall and I, we're both massive plant nuts, so we decided it would be kind of fun to do a bit of a channel takeover and present each of our top 10 beginner aquarium plants. So hopefully you don't mind me sticking around today and talking about 10 of my absolute favorite beginner aquarium plants. So let's jump straight into the video. First of all, I guess you probably realised by my accent, I'm actually Australian, so maybe we should just drop this charade. No, I'm not in Kendall's fish room, unfortunately, although I'd love to visit one day. So it's probably time now to head back over to my fish room. So let's jump ahead and do that. Okay, that feels a lot better. We're back at home. So with today's video of top 10 aquarium plants for beginners, some of the considerations I'm putting in my mind when formulating this 10 to 1 list are things like, will you need a lot of expertise with fertilizers or high-tech equipment, things like that, and just basically the level of upkeep that will be required to maintaining a healthy plant. So to kick off the list, number 10, luckily it's a lot easier to grow than its name is to pronounce, and that is Subwassertang or Subwassertang, and its common name is freshwater seaweed. So what this is a mossy plant. It has a texture a lot like cellophane, so a light green sort of plasticky sort of texture. And it looks really strange when you first get it in, and it's sort of very sparse. There's pieces of it everywhere. But what happens is, if you let a piece stay in one area and you don't bother it, in no time it will really take on a new life of its own and start to look like something a lot more special. Now, why I like this as a plant for beginners is basically because it's impossible to kill, and it's got a really interesting look to it. It's quite unique, and it's really practical as well when it comes to attempting to breed egg scattering fish and things like that. So it's functional, it's practical, it's easy to grow, and it looks pretty unique as well. So for those reasons, that's why I had Subwassertang as my number 10 plant for beginners. Number 9 on the list, people often ask in the beginning, you know, they see these beautiful aquascaped tanks and they say, how do I get a red plant? And it's not quite red, but I like this plant as a beginner's introduction into colors other than green. So that's the reason why I chose Cryptocorini species Wendtii brown. So this is an interesting looking plant. It couldn't be higher on the list because there is a little bit of a trick to keeping crypts that beginners do become a little bit unstuck with, but nevertheless you get a really nice sort of deep brown purpley sort of color to it, and a cool shape as well. So it does quite well as a foreground plant in larger aquariums. It grows fairly quickly once it gets going, and so long as you do one little trick that I'll fill you in on, you'll have a lot of success with this plant in any lighting conditions and things like that. So the trick is, with all the crypts, that they will melt back, so don't panic, and put a root tab directly underneath them. Early days I often thought this a similar thing where it was like, I can't put a root tab directly under, the fertilizer will burn it or something like that. And I can assure you it's quite the opposite. The plant will thank you so much for just giving it exactly what it needs in the shortest distance as possible. It will multiply rapidly, and you'll just find it to be a whole nother kettle of fish. So long as you don't panic when you put it into the aquarium and you give it the fertilization that it needs, you will have a really, once again, unique foreground looking plant, and you will achieve those sort of different colors that you're looking for without all the hassle of CO2 and high lighting. So that's why number 9 on the list is Crypt Wendtii brown. Number 8 on the list, we do have a versatile plant, but once again sort of in the foreground sort of realm. We have Micranthemum micromanthoides, common name Pearlweed, and I really like this plant as well. So this plant here does really well floating up the top. You can plant it in the foreground as well, and it will carpet out nicely under, you know, much lower light than many of the other carpeting plants. But what can happen is you just need to maintain it a little bit, because otherwise it will keep growing taller and taller, and eventually it will probably, the buoyancy will be such that it will pull itself out of the aquarium. But it's a bulletproof plant, you can't really kill it, and you'll get a similar look to those high-end aquascapes that are running the Monte Carlo and the HC and all those more high-tech plants. So for that reason I like Pearlweed, because it's sort of a beginner's way into carpeting plants. Number 7 on the list is a floating plant. Actually, I put Frogbit at number 7, mainly because the features of Frogbit are that they have more sort of low-hanging roots, which are really good for a pairing with a beginner fish such as a guppy or another live bearer. And I think that these go really hand in hand together, beginners and keeping live bearers, and also floating plants such as Frogbit. So I think it's a super practical plant, and it will really help to increase the breeding action or the survival rate of fry in the beginner live bearer tanks. So as a floating plant, it doesn't really have a huge amount of demands. Just don't give it crazy amounts of flow. Sort of let it, you know, do its thing in a low flow environment, and you'll probably find you'll have a lot of success, and you'll get a really practical root system that your fish will probably enjoy. So number 7 was Amazon Frogbit. Number 6 on the list also has a really difficult name to pronounce, so bear with me there, but it's Limnophila Sessiliflora. Limnophila Sessiliflora, and it's a great plant. The common name is Dwarf Ambulia, but it depends on where you are as to what the common names are usually. But this is another really great practical plant that will provide a lot of hiding spaces for things like shrimp and fry and all sorts of things in the aquarium. It grows super fast and it multiplies itself. You don't need to do any work to have this cover the entire background of your aquarium, or really all of your aquarium if you let it. So this plant multiplies by sending out runners, and it will do so pretty rapidly. If you are in the situation where you do want to confine it to a certain area, you don't want to let it get out of control, I would personally recommend placing it inside a terracotta pot as you plant it, but beginners will have a lot of fun with this plant because it will just make the aquarium explode with plants and life and everything else. So for that reason, number 6 on the list was the Limnophila. Really beautiful, fast reproducing plant. Number 5 on the list is another background plant, and one that has a pretty unique look to it as well. Basically, a lot of people early days in their fish keeping hobby, I feel, try and get that sort of seaweed look again. So for that reason, number 5 is Vallisneria. Many different types of Vallisneria, between thin val, Italian val, giant val, tiger val. Name your species. There's a bunch of them, and they're all pretty simple to grow and really rewarding. So they will sort of get a really nice effect if you let them, where they will grow up and drape over the aquarium, which looks really nice in the sort of flow of a canister filter or something like that. Also, if you don't want them to grow that high, you can cut them at that point, and actually they will just stop growing at that point. So that if you cut them at that point, they will just shoot off a runner underneath and grow up another plant next to it. So it is a pretty manageable plant. You can sort of set the height of it, and so long as you're up with trimming the new growth, then you can really have a nice uniform finish. Similar to the Cryptocorynes, you want to just put a root tab directly at the base of these, and that's pretty much all the care you need to really put into them. You'll get a nice, lush, sort of thick growth and a great background plant that will produce fast and give you that sort of classic aquarium look that a lot of people are going for in the beginning. So number 5 on the list is Vallisneria. Number 4 on the list is a personal favorite of mine, and one that I've had a lot of success with. It is another one that will give you an interesting texture and potentially a nice color in your aquarium. It might, depending on your lights, give you a nice sort of pink hue, which is really good to see in a beginner aquarium. It's Rotala Rotundifolia, and it's a really fast producing, nice sort of compact leaf system stem plant. And the reason that this is, I guess, so high on the list is that being a stem plant, you can just cut it at any point, replant it, and you'll have a whole nother plant once it shoots a root system off from there. So I like that versatility for beginners, and I think that it sort of ticks a lot of the boxes that beginners are looking for. So I've put it at number 4 on my list of beginner plants. Once again, pretty low demands. They will appreciate some water column fertilization, but it's not really necessary, I guess, depending on your fish load, but it'll be pretty forgiving either way. Pretty much the only difference you'll find is that it might be a little bit more stringy or a little bit more green if you don't give it the care it wants. But other than that, pretty low demands. So for that reason, I think it's a great beginner plant. Third on the list is third because it is, well, first of all, it comes in a bunch of different shapes and colors. Maybe not colors, yeah, colors. And also it is very, very forgiving. So we have Anubias on the list, which is the first epiphyte plant, I think. But Anubias is a really great staple, so they're super slow growing, so they don't need any maintenance. But this could detract from beginners if they want to really see something grow in front of their eyes, which a lot of beginners are looking for. But by the same token, being a slow grower, they're also a really slow dyer, so you won't find that you know, you wake up and it will all have melted back to nothing as well. So I like that it's sort of very adaptable to the learning environment of a beginner and they're stepping into the world of growing their own plants. Also, Anubias is super tolerant of fish that are prone to destroying plants. So they're one of the only plants that you can put in with sort of African cichlids, silver dollars and things. I still wouldn't recommend doing that because they might still decide to just attack it for the fun of it. But they're much more resilient than other plants and also much more forgiving. They're also very low light tolerant as well, so you don't need to keep any crazy high powered lights or anything with Anubias either. Number 2 on the list is another epiphyte and a great pairing for Anubias. A lot of people stumble across this plant early days, and it is higher than Anubias just because it grows a bit more sort of lush and a little bit faster than Anubias in my opinion. So I've got Java Fern up at number 2 on my best beginner plant list. Epiphyte plant, so you can attach it to things. Don't plant it in the substrate because that thick, rooty sort of looking rhizome, what it's called, will actually rot in the substrate. So you can just attach it via super glue or a cable tie or a zip tie or something like that to some hardscape. And that's really good, I feel, for beginners as well, because then you can move it around the aquarium without disturbing everything as well. So a lot of times, especially myself in the beginning, I would get bored and then want to change everything up. So it allows you to do that by being attached to rocks and driftwood and decorations and all of those sorts of things. So Java Fern's a great one. They grow a little bit bigger too, so they're more suited to your sort of mid or background. And yeah, I just think it's, once again, really forgiving, really versatile and low demand. So there's not much else you could ask for in a beginner plant as far as I'm concerned. Number 1 on the list, I'm going to make a late change. Actually, I was kind of tempted to put duckweed at number 1 because it is bulletproof and impossible to kill. But I did just at the last minute think that a lot of beginners probably would struggle to get rid of duckweed as well. So maybe that's too much of a deterrent to put it at number 1. Although it would be pretty funny to do that. So I'm going to sub in Hygrophila Polysperma as number 1 on my list. Again, it has a sort of classic aquatic plant look to it. It will grow super fast and has super low light demands. A stem plant again, so you can just cut it at any point and replant it. Also, there's a variety which has sort of pink veins through the leaves, and they look really awesome as well. But even if you attempted to grow that under low light conditions and things like that, it would just have green leaves, so it's not a big loss. It's not like some other plants where they're just going to melt back out of existence. So this plant made it to number 1 because super easy to grow, super undemanding, grows really fast, basically in front of your eyes, so it gives that instant impact and sort of reward to people growing their first plants in the aquarium environment. And it will, yeah, give a nice bushy sort of feel to your aquarium and bring in a lot more life and flow and all of those sorts of things. So I do think we ended on a better note than duckweed perhaps, but just to make things a little bit better, I do want to also add a bonus plant in because for those of you that are familiar with me, I don't do top 10s very well. I always sneak a few extras in. So I'm going to give you a bonus one today, and it's not an aquatic plant, so I feel like we're allowed to do that. And that is actually Pothos, or Devil's Ivy. This plant is readily found at sort of hardware sort of stores and you know, nurseries and things like that. just give them a good rinse to make sure they haven't been sprayed with any pesticides and things like that. You can place the root system in your aquarium and that will be a really, really fabulous nitrate sponge. So they'll help give that sort of buffer between, you know, if you accidentally miss a water change because you're busy or something along those lines, you know, or you impulse buy a couple more fish and probably, you know, it's one too many, but putting a plant in the top of your aquarium and letting it grow out will really sort of help to maintain a high quality water in your aquarium. So because they are going to grow outside in the air, they'll have full availability to carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, which is really great. And it's an indoor plant as well, so no high light demands or anything like that. They do super well in hang-on backs, but also if you allow the roots to grow down into the substrate, you'll find the growth will be way faster and you will get sort of a cool root system growing in the water column if that's a look that you desire. I find that it's really great for fish refuge and for fry survival and things like that, to allow the roots to grow in the aquarium, and I don't mind the look of it. I think it sort of gives more of a natural underwater feel. For that reason, I would always recommend beginners or expert aquarists to grow a little bit of devil's ivy above their aquarium, as well as all of the plants we spoke about in their aquarium as well. So let me know down below what you thought of this top 10 list. I really appreciate Kendall and everyone here for watching and allowing me to fill in on this video. Also on my channel, Kendall has done his top 10 video, so be sure to head over there and check it out and see if we sort of came up with similar plants or we had a lot different, or who knows what. I'm sure you guys will appreciate seeing his top 10 as well, and I'm interested to find out for myself. So thanks to all of you out there. It's great to see some new faces and meet some new friends within the aquarium hobby. I appreciate your time, and I'll appreciate if any of you decide to head over to my channel and maybe are inclined to subscribe. Other than that, my name's Blake. This has been Blake's Aquatics Top 10 Beginner Plants, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.